Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. I am your host, Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And let's get into honoring God with our body. God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please protect our reproductive organs. Help us to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if it is your first time joining us here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News, that is something that we try to say daily here on the show, unless there is another passage of scripture that I want to bring up to everyone's attention. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. And we're going to get into some trending topics on next. Today is Tell It All Tuesday, and I try to find things that may not be as pushed or promoted, but they need to be discussed, if that makes any sense. So let's start with something I came across yesterday. I didn't get into, so I wanted to get into a little bit more today. It is Minnesota classrooms to get transgender dolls with swappable genitalia. So taxpayer-funded paper dolls that get kids remove and swap genitalia are headed to the Minnesota classrooms. A University of Minnesota therapist spent over a decade developing them. The stated goal: help children learn about different options that exist for who they can be. No, this is insane. Look, if you are not born with certain equipment, it is what it is. You are either male or female, and that's it. You cannot swap out your genitalia like an automaton. A man will never be able to carry a uterus in his body because his body's not designed for that. A woman will never be able to produce sperm because our bodies aren't designed for that. That's it. Stop the madness. But here we are. Somebody paid for this, by the way. So the website for the dolls promises to make gender fun. They are designed for therapeutic play and gender identity exploration. Really? Reportedly for kids as young as 4 years old. So we're just going to destroy humanity right here, right now. We're going to create eunuchs, first of all, because once you damage that organ, that's it. It ain't come back. Not never. And then that's going to perpetuate because they're going to think, hey, let's continue to do this to other people. This is gross. This is so horrible. So, paid for by the taxpayers. So, here is a clip from Fox News as they go over this. Oops. Hold on. Let me switch the volume control so you guys can hear it as well. And good morning, Spud McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Moved and then swapped out. A therapist at the University of Minnesota Medical tells the New York Post that they spent over a decade developing the dolls. The goal is to help kids, quote, learn about the different options that exist for who they can be. The website for the dolls promises to, quote, make gender fun. It says they were designed for clinicians and educators and lists their purpose as therapeutic play and gender identity exploration. They'll reportedly be in classrooms with kids as young as 4.
This is pedophilia.
Kaylee, let's start with you. Your thoughts on this?
It's just remarkable that Tim Waltz failed to secure, the release of the illegal alien child rapist in Minnesota, who he tried to pardon, was deported anyway, and immediately turned his attention to this, to exposing young preschoolers to genitalia. Put aside the transgender element to this for a minute. Why does a 4-year-old need to be exposed to genitalia, period? point blank. It's completely unnecessary. And so I think, you know, for those who predicted that maybe the left would take a more moderate approach on this issue after 2024 and that maybe they would, you know, abandon wokeness altogether, no. Clearly, it's just lying dormant in some of these states. And when politicians, again, remember, he's not seeking re-election, he's done. And when they don't have any restraints, this is what happens. They pursue it to its full force, and they are only going to ever get more radical on this issue. So I think it's a warning for Republicans, but also for parents, for those of us who have young children, to constantly be on guard about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just don't like the opening of adults having that intimate a conversation with a 4-year-old. I don't like it. I think we have enough pedophilia in our society not to have that happen. And if you think some aren't masquerading in regular places in our society, you're delusional. They are. So I don't want anybody telling my child or anybody's child, 4 years old, by the way, if you put your hands in your pants, we can change that for you. Like, what kind of a message are we sending? Unless we're training, you know, a bunch of surgeons and we want kids to start early with the idea of mutilation and surgery. Look, I'm going to talk plain. Because as disgusting as it sounds, imagine what the reality is.
Brass tacks economically. So the Minnesotans have just learned that billions of their tax dollars went out the window, right, funding terrorist organizations and worse. And now they're also learning on top of that, that whatever's remaining is funding this.
And what's so disturbing is that there's like no chance that Minnesota won't go blue in the midterms. And
Yeah. I mean, it's very sad what's happening in our society. So the next thing I wanted to tap into, we're going to go back to X for the last part of this broadcast, but I wanted to just check out an article on All Sides. And this has to do with Dr. Fauci. Diary entries from Dr. Fauci show contradictions with his public comments on COVID-19. Now, we saw him contradict himself in real time over the course of the pandemic, right? Which is really interesting because, you know, when he was questioned in front of the Senate, he tried to go back and say, you know, these things aren't true and you're liars. And I was like, bro, a lot of these things you did and said. Now, a lot of people will say, well, in the heat of the moment, things were changing rapidly and he had to change with course. It's like, no. What people fail to realize is there was a meeting that was recorded by C-SPAN where they talked about how they could manipulate things so that they could use certain medications and then develop vaccines behind it. So in my opinion, this was a long-term plan. And they knew exactly what they were doing. They made him the fall guy. And now people are looking at him as if he's a victim. It's very crazy. So over 1,000 pages of a diary belonging to Dr. Anthony Fauci, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, were shared online on July 23rd. The story was primarily covered by outlets on the right. I doubt if many on the center. Says Fauci expressed delusionment with rambling crazy Trump in the Journal. Yeah, he wasn't delusional. They all knew what they were doing. And it's just very sad what they've done to the American people. And we're still in recovery from it. I'm glad we're moving forward, but there are people still recovering. So with that, I want to get to this next post on X. Let me see. Did I do it right? I don't know if I did it right. Let's see, public schools. Sorry, guys. There's a lot of things I needed to cover. I think there was one I had, but I decided to just kind of jump to Grok to see. And so apparently Thomas Massey, he did a post talking about JD Vance, and JD Vance was talking about his effects from the COVID shot. Okay. So I said, can you find more information on the money the CDC recently gave to Pfizer? So here we go. On June 1st, 2026, the CDC awarded Pfizer to indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts with a combined maximum ceiling value of roughly $1.2 billion for COVID-19 vaccines, covering the remainder of fiscal year 26 and 27. So this was going to cover pediatric COVID and adult COVID. These are framework IDIQ contracts. They set maximum potential quantities and prices so the government can order doses if needed, with terms like minimum order sizes, delivery timelines, shelf life requirements, but they do not automatically spend or obligate the full amount. So actual spending occurs only if, when, as delivery orders are placed. So nothing in the order has been placed. These are just, they're almost just like holding contracts. I mean, that sounds kind of funny to say, but that's kind of what it is. So actual spending occurs only if, right, things are in place. Now, multiple sources, including contract trackers, show $0 obligated at the time of reporting of these vehicles. So it's from 0 up to 1.2 billion. Doesn't mean that the 1.2 billion has been spent. It's just that's the cap. If conditional, it's needed if orders are placed. So Robert F. Kennedy, he said the claim that CDC has already spent 1.24 billion on COVID-19 vaccines is wrong. The contracts cited are indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts put in place ahead of the season to ensure availability if needed. So the HHS and CDC have not purchased COVID-19 vaccines for the upcoming respiratory season and have made no decisions regarding future purchases. So IDIQ contracts allowing future orders are not the same as spending taxpayer dollars. Yeah. So Massey, he referenced Post reacts to these awards in the context of J.D. Vance's prior comments about his own experience with COVID-19 vaccine, and the contracts themselves are real and documented in public or federal procurement systems. The key distinction is that the 1.24 billion figure is a ceiling for potential orders, not money already spent or guaranteed to be spent. So Massey, I would suggest you stop. This is why you're not nominated right now. Let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about it. And, some things you're good at, some things you're not. But that was deceptive, and it shouldn't be. But do politicians really care? That's the bigger question. Now, let's get into something that is very disturbing. So I'm going to actually go into this video from Jew Almighty, and where it's talking about how kids are cheating with AI, and we've all known this, but the sadder part behind it is the literacy decline.
No, everybody is getting dumber at this point.
The deity had a premonition of the impending cataclysmic event.
Whether it was social media platforms like TikTok shortening our attention spans.
That they have zero retention and zero access to imagination. They will practice a subject or a skill the whole week, and then when it comes to testing, the children draw a blank. They don't know.
Or everyone from office employees to students relying on AI to do their work for them.
32 of my 35 students between two classes failed a portion of their midterm because they all used AI to generate their entire response. And apparently they didn't proofread it.
But I'm Jew. Welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. Now, let's get into it.
32 of my 35 students between two classes failed a portion of their midterm because they all used AI to generate their entire response. And apparently they didn't proofread it. Let me show y'all how I picked up on it. So this discussion post was a portion of my students' midterm, and if you look, looks normal, right? But if you copy and paste this and look closely,
it's white text.
In white ink, I hid, placed the word Madagascar somewhere in the response in a way that makes no sense.
So you're telling me 32 out of 35 students just select all, copy and pasted that into ChatGPT or whatever they wanted to use without seeing any of that white text right there. And then I guess once they got it back, if it had Madagascar throughout the text or somewhere in the text that randomly had nothing to do with anything, they didn't proofread it before they submitted it. That's crazy.
But if you uncopy and paste it, you can't see it. So if Madagascar was somewhere in my students' response in a way that did not make sense, I knew that they copied and pasted the entire thing.
What was the paper on, though? What was the midterm? The Industrial Revolution dramatically transformed work, technology, and everyday life. So it was on the Industrial Revolution, but they randomly had Madagascar scattered throughout. He is really smart for doing that.
Threw it in AI, and oh my God. You would be amazed at the bizarre usage of the word Madagascar that I saw in these students' assignments. First and foremost, Madagascar has nothing to do with the Industrial Revolution. Second, it was more than obvious that they didn't even go back and reread these responses. So yeah, 32 out of 35 students failed a portion of their midterm, and that's how. So students, if you're going to use AI to generate the entire...
Let's talk about that. 32 out of 35 failed. So basically, not over 90% of the students failed. This is sad, truly.
high response, at least reread it.
Proofread it, something before you turn it in. How don't you scan it? But I guess if they didn't write any of it, not even the introduction, they won't have any real clue what it's talking about. You would think they would proofread it, but maybe your eyes aren't even looking for something like Madagascar.
Please try to ensure that it makes a little bit of sense. Try to put it in your own words, something.
I have two friends that are professors, and when I tell you that these students are dumb as hell, they don't even be switching the language up. Teacher is on his A game, no tomfoolery on his watch. I mean, that was really smart to put it in white text, and whoever caught it, whoever didn't it. Maybe those 3 students caught it, or maybe they actually wrote their own essays, but they probably, but more than anything, they probably caught that white text. Just bravo, facts. Yeah, good on him for doing that. Prior to AI becoming this big phenomenon, American illiteracy rates were already severely declining.
The United States of America is becoming post-literate as literacy rates decline and Americans in a lot of ways are no longer reading as much anymore. New reporting from The Atlantic reveals a literacy crisis in the United States. Essentially, we're becoming less literate, whereas The Atlantic argues post-literate. The Atlantic writes that nearly 30% of Americans these days cannot draw inferences from a multi-paragraph text. That's up 10% from 2017. Daily pleasure reading for Americans has fallen from 28% of Americans doing daily pleasure readings to just 16%. There is a literacy crisis right now. People are reading less. People can deduce less, can infer less from multi-page text, multi-paragraph text. In a lot of ways, America is falling behind many other industrialized Western civilizations across the globe.
A lot of that had to do with social media in general, how it's created and engineered to maintain our attention. The shorter attention span because of TikTok feeds, the swipes, all of it.
I've been seeing a lot of videos lately showing kids that are struggling to read and comprehend words that they shouldn't have any trouble with.
The deputy had a permutation of the The deputy had a permutation of the impotent and catastrophic event.
What does that mean?
The deputy painted a picture of the catastrophic event before it even happened.
The deity had a premonition of the impending cataclysmic event.
What does that mean?
It was a big event. It was like astronomically bad. Like, that's what it means.
The deity had a promotion of the impending cataclysmic event.
What does that mean?
The deity has to be like a group of people. Promotion is getting up to something, right? Do they even say that? Don't even say promotion. Premonition? Bro, give me that for card.
The deity had a premonition of the impending cataclysmic event.
All right, now what does it mean?
It means what it says.
All right, paraphrasing. Read the end of this card for me.
She wore a suit, clothes that were... Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
Now explain what that means.
I don't know. The mentor chastised his disciplines for failing to adhere to the research protocols.
All right, what does that mean?
I don't know.
According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Roughly a third of American fourth graders are reading below the basic level. A third.
And it feels like AI was just the icing on the cake or the straw that broke the camel's back.
A fourth grader asked their teacher.
So I remember telling you guys about last year that the entire third grade from the city of South Bend were not at reading level. The entire city, not a school, the entire city of schools, where the third graders couldn't advance to the fourth grade because none of them were at reading level. This is a failure at the local level. And it is a failure when they stopped teaching phonics. They stopped teaching phonics, I think, after I got out of the 7th grade. Okay. I graduated in 1989. I'm saying I'm an 80s baby. Okay. Well, 70s baby. I was born in the 70s, school in the 80s. But they stopped teaching phonics. They stopped teaching children how to read. People stopped reading out loud in class. We unfortunately had mass immigration where they had to take on ESL, which is a extra was an English as a second language, ESL, which was taught in Orange County, California, because we had a huge influx of non-English speaking students. So that took away from the students that needed to learn how to speak English, and they stopped teaching phonics. Now, I graduated with a 5th grade reading level, had to go to a reading lab in college to get myself up to a comprehension and reading level at the college level. So it can be done, but the question is, why aren't we doing it? These teachers know these babies can't read, and they're passing them anyway. Look, these are our future leaders. These are future congressmen and women. This is future presidents. They can't read or comprehend. This is scary. It's not funny. It's horrible. Horrible, horrible. And the pandemic did not help. Very true, Spud. And you also said if it's AI, we need to come up with a new word for that kind of plagiarism. Yeah, definitely. It says there's a video of the rapper Raylo Rodriguez ordering a buttermilk pancake platter, and he says, barnacle cake platter? Oh, that's sad. He didn't know how to. Okay. All right, let's continue.
Why do I need to learn how to read if AI can read for me? Right now, 40% of fourth graders can't read. We're witnessing the collapse of the American education system.
I teach 8th grade history, and I have 110-ish students. 2 of them are reading on grade level right now. 18 of them are at a kindergarten level. 55 of those students are between a 2nd and 4th grade level. We were doing guided notes, supposed to be a real easy day. It was review. They wrote down Maryland was founded as a safe haven for Catholics. It was on the board. They wrote it down. And before we moved on, I call on a student and I ask, hey, where were the Catholics one more time? And these students, what they do is they look at me, and then they look at their notes, and then they look at the board. They look back at their notes. And some of them never answered me. They never figured out the answer. It was wild.
This month, average reading scores for high school seniors released by the nation's report card fell to the lowest since 1992. It was the first time that 12th graders had taken the test since the COVID pandemic, and the results showed a widening gap between the highest and lowest achieving students.
The kids can't read, write, or remember anything or use their imaginations, and the teachers are wondering why. Parents are confused with why our children are coming home with these crazy grades or not knowing how to do their homework. So then we can't help them because they don't know how to tell us what the hell they're doing in class.
On top of that, the work and formulas, especially for math, have completely changed. It is legit hard for parents to help kids with their homework these days.
All across the country, we got teachers.
And part of that reasoning is because they are teaching children in a method for individuals that already have learning disabilities. If you teach a normal person, a normal person in a way as if they have a disability, they're never going to learn anything. But that's what we're doing. And they've been doing it for decades, not years, decades. This was not the pandemic. The pandemic exposed what was been going on for decades. Okay, this is over 30 years in the making. That's when I'm trying to sound the alarm. Look, this is a problem that has to be fixed.
You're saying the same thing, that these kids are not in the level or on the level of the grade that they're in, that their handwriting is crazy.
I don't even think they teach cursive in schools anymore. So I guess kids signing checks or anything in the future is just going to be them writing their name.
That they have zero retention and zero access to imagination. They will practice a subject or a skill the whole week, and then when it comes to testing, the children draw a blank. They don't know. They don't know what they're supposed to do. We were writing full-ass essays, the final draft and the rough draft in the same 45-minute time period, ready to turn in 3rd grade. We got high schoolers out here right now that can't write 5 paragraphs. And the teachers and parents alike want to know why. But I'm going to tell you something. It ain't the kids. It's the system. It's not just COVID. It's not just the phones and the tablets. It's not just the parents. It's not just the curriculum. It's all of it.
Yeah, that's facts. And as things continue to get worse, as AI continues to get better, as social media continues to be more addictive, I think everyone is going to continue to struggle. I don't know, what's the last book you actually started to read and finished? It's not just kids. No one is even reading anymore. It's a big problem. But with AI being so accessible, I really don't see a way where students aren't using it in some way, shape, or form to get their work done, which again really hurts them because they're not learning and developing on their own. It's crazy. I just think we're all cooked. But thanks for watching. Y'all let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the next video.
Yeah, and Spud was saying low literacy rate guarantees capitalism. We have to update curriculum to teach both physical and digital. I don't know if it guarantees capitalism, because if people can't read properly, who is going to be able to properly take over the business if they can't comprehend what they're supposed to be doing? It's all going to be failure. All of it. So that led me to coming across the fact that, right now, the enrollment for public schools has drastically decreased. So I found this post on X. So a new analysis warns that declining student enrollment could cost states $11.5 billion in annual K-12 funding by the 2030-31 school year, creating significant financial challenges for public schools across the country. The primary driver, declining birth rates, along with slowing immigration, I found that interesting, and the continued growth of school choice and homeschooling. Yeah, because people are pulling their kids out of school. My kid's not learning. I cannot trust my children to you, period. Now, the report projects that 40 states will see continued enrollment declines over the next several years, forcing education leaders to make difficult decisions about how schools are staffed, funded, and organized. There have been mass closures of schools around the country. Anybody know about that? It's happening. Very crazy. Now, schools may increasingly face budget reductions tied to fewer enrollment costs, staff layoffs and hiring freezes, school consolidations and closures, like I just mentioned, tough decisions about maintaining programs and student services. So for rural districts, the challenge is even greater. Many small schools already operate on tight budgets, and losing even a small number of students can have an outsized impact on funding and community stability. And what I need to say to those rural communities, maybe your superintendent should be having a 6-figure salary. I'm going to talk about that. The administrative costs need to be lowered. That's where the bulk of this money is going, because it's not going to the teachers. It might be going to the principals and assistant principals and, again, the people that are administrators, but it's not going to the teachers. And that determines the quality of education you have. Where are the books? Books are reused to the point where they're falling apart for students. I mean, it's just disgusting. And we spend billions of dollars per student. We have the highest investment in our students, and our babies can't read. Where's the money going? That's really, really telling of what's happening right now. So the question is for education leaders is, how can steps How can states help schools adapt to fewer students while continuing to meet increasingly complex student needs? Actually teach them, make sure that they can actually read and comprehend, get back to phonics, maybe get back to teaching the children instead of teaching them about gender. Maybe you need to teach them how to read and write and comprehend, do math, handwrite. Actually teach and educate them, not indoctrinate them. That's why we are where we are. This is a problem. And so enrollment drops, budgets shrink. Really? Is that what you're worried about? Your precious budgets? Yeah, because see, when these students don't show up, they don't get the money. Yeah, it's horrible. Fewer students can mean billions less for schools. But if the babies aren't being educated, why should they be there? There has to be a payout on this. Okay. And then I came across this. It says the Los Angeles School District, the second largest public school system in the United States, is facing an unprecedented financial and structural crisis. In July 2026, the district was declared formally insolvent, setting off a multi-billion-dollar wave of job reductions and school closures in LA. Really? All the money that's poured into this? This is just disgusting. This is gross. I'm not going to read all this, but I will make sure to link it. And it says the manufactured collapse of the Los Angeles Public School. When something is manufactured, that means it just didn't happen. That means there was mechanisms behind it to bring it to this place. So disgusting. Insolvency, mass layoffs, and union sabotage. Really? Really? See, what these educators haven't thought about is these are the individuals that are going to be taking care of us when we're older, right? When we're in our 80s, they're going to be the individuals working in the nursing homes, running the country, hopefully able to run a business if they can learn basic math so they can even keep a budget. What kind of society is going to be in the next 10 years? This is a big area of concern. It needs to be dealt with. Now, I said low, public school enrollment and uptick in homeschooling recently. Can you give me the latest statistics and also include reading levels of homeschooled children compared to public school? So right now, public school enrollment has declined by roughly 1.4 million students, about 2.8% from fall 2019, pre-pandemic of 50.8 million to fall 2024, 49.4 million. More recent figures show continued modest drops in EA data, but fall 2024 enrollment at least 48.8, down 0.3% from fall of 2023, with a projected further 1% decline into 25-26. Declines have been steeper in elementary grades and concentrated in populous states such as New York, California, Illinois, which together accounted for a large share of the national drop. About 40 states saw decreases 2019 to 2024. Only a handful, including some Sunbelt and Midwest states, gained students. Drivers include lower birth rates, fewer school-age children overall, pandemic era shifts, migration patterns, and growth in alternatives. Okay? So spending per pupil has risen. So the money's there. So if it's risen, what are we talking about? What is happening? So 34% growth in total spending from 2019 to 2024, even as enrollment fell. So enrollment went down, but the spending went up. Okay. While many districts face closures or consolidations due to shrinking roles, projections from NCES and others point to further declines in coming years, potentially below 47 million by 2030-32 under baseline scenarios, though outcomes vary by scenario for alternative schooling uptake. So Homeschooling has grown substantially and remains elevated well above pre-pandemic levels. So that's on the rise. And I can understand why, because, once parents started finding out that their kids couldn't read, write, do math, or handwrite, then they saw what their children were actually learning in the classrooms. People were like, I don't want my kids learning that. I will definitely pull them. I have to. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't really have a choice as a parent. Now, on academic performance, particularly in reading, multiple studies and reviews from the National Home Education Research Institute and peer-reviewed work by Brian Ray and colleagues find homeschool students typically score 15 to 25 percentile points higher than public school averages on standardized achievement tests. So the babies are learning at the house because they're actually learning, and they're not learning in the schools. And the schools are closing. But the students keep coming. This is gross. It is gross. Recent nationwide analysis report mean percentiles for homeschoolers in the mid to high 70s. So 75 to 79 overall across reading, language, math, social studies, and science, versus the public school norm of 50th percentile. Reading, language, arts results are consistently strong in these data. Advantages often hold after basic demographic controls and appear across income, education levels of parents. A systematic look at peer-reviewed or representative sample studies finds a majority, around 60% plus, show positive academic efforts for homeschooled students, with most of the rest showing parity. This, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I mean, what are we doing? And then I also wanted to look at colleges and the use of AI. I said, are certain colleges blocking students from using AI? Yes. Certain colleges programs are restricting or effectively blocking students from using AI in specific contexts. Though full campus-wide technical blocks on all AI tools are uncommon and often impractical, policies range from strict prohibitions in admissions and certain classrooms to course-by-course rules, with a clear recent example of device bans aimed at curbing AI reliance. So there are colleges actually saying, hey, we can't use these in schools. And this should still be at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels as well. They think turning the kids over to technology, that'll help them learn. No, as you saw in the video, one of the instructors, she was like, the kids were like, why do I have to read? AI can do it for me. What? What? That's where we are. That is where we are. In July 2026, the University of Chicago announced a formal AI strategy that includes a ban on personal electronic devices, laptops, tablets, and phones in all core first year 1L courses starting in the 26-27 academic year. So that's this year coming up, like no more. In-class exams with no internet, electronic files, or apps. Limited exceptions, right? Designation classroom scribes for shared notes, approved in-class polling, and disability accommodations, because there are some people who physically just can't write, right? But they have the academic acuity to keep up. And SPUD, because it says they actually have software that universities and colleges are using to detect AI written material. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The stated goal is to ensure students actually learn to think critically, strategically, and independently without relying on AI, while still teaching responsible AI's use later in the curriculum, especially in legal research and writing and upper level electives. So officials noted AI can stunt intellectual growth if students offload thinking to it. This is one of the stricter institutional responses focused on foundational skills. Wow. And I'll leave these links for you guys in the repost. But thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. I know this Tell It All Tuesday was a little bit long, but I really just needed to share with you what's happening, because we definitely need to pray for our young people, especially students that are not able to properly read, text, comprehend, handwrite, and they're relying so much on a machine. What happens when the electricity goes off? And you have to write that essay by hand. I mean, you could get a electric typewriter, right? I mean, and what I mean by selectric, I shouldn't say the electric selectric, but a manual typewriter where you have to manually click the return carriage. Do our students even know how to do that? Are we properly preparing individuals for later on in case something happens? We are an unprepared society right now, and we really need to get back to the basics. So that's my prayer for the schools. So thank you again for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. We'll be back tomorrow with Women in Wellness Wednesday. So remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.